Alabama against Texas A&M. If this game were a night game, you could maybe double it up, hit Red River Rivalry in the morning and then hit Alabama A&M at night. That'd be a heck of a Saturday. But unfortunately for those that are trying to play the doubleheader, you're not going to be able to make that happen. Alabama travels to Tuscaloosa. This game will be at 3:30 Eastern time. And the big key in this game, like it is every week, I hate that this is where we go every week. Turnovers are massive in this game. Massive. If you think about what Alabama has been, and frankly, what Max Johnson's been over the course of his career, both at A&M and at LSU prior to getting to College Station, turnovers have been part of the story for both Jalen Milroe and Max Johnson. And if they come to the forefront in this game, there are going to be some issues. Milroe's had 5 career starts. He's thrown 4 interceptions in those 5 career starts, most notably 2 against A&M, or 1 against A&M last year, and then 2 against Texas this year. He's also had 2 fumbles in those 5 starts. Those were both against A&M. He didn't lose either one, but that's something to note as well. Johnson, however, 18 games started in his career. He has 8 career interceptions, and he's had 13 career fumbles in 18 games that he started, including 2 last week that he lost. He's lost 5. So ball security is of the utmost importance when it comes to evaluating this quarterback matchup. Milroe, I think, has done a really good job in the last couple weeks. I know that he didn't play against South Florida, but since being thrust back into the lineup the last few weeks, he's really grown from a confident standpoint. Right now, he's 14th in college football in passing efficiency. Now, he doesn't throw it a ton, but he has been efficient in the process. 78 pass attempts this year, 838, 6-3 touchdown to interception. And the one thing he hasn't done a great job of, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, understanding when the defense wins and not trying to do too much. Because if you look at the sacks, granted, we've all blamed the offensive line, and we'll talk about it, like I said, in a second. The sacks aren't always on the offensive line. There have been times when Milroe maybe has held on to it a little too long in an effort to make the play, which I totally admire and appreciate. But against a group like this, when you get behind the sticks by taking a sack on a first or second down, then they're going to pin their ears back on third down. It becomes very, very difficult. Milroe has to continue to be decisive. If it's not there on 1, if it's not there on 2, take off. He did it against Mississippi State and created some big plays with his legs as a result. Max Johnson, on the other side, also a very gifted runner. What I'd like to see Max Johnson do is not lower his shoulder, because they've already lost 1 quarterback for the year. You lose another, then your season could get real dicey in a hurry. He needs to be real smart, obviously, with the decision-making. I think he's really accurate. I think he throws a good deep ball. I think they have an excellent wide receiver core to take some of the load off him in catch-and-run situations. And I really believe that Max Johnson is playing more confidently than he has in the past. Now, maybe sometimes he's a bit of a game breaker. Like, he can do some different things that can make life really tough on you. So he's going to have to understand, like Milroe, hey, the defense won this one. Let's not try to make a play, because every drive that ends in a kick in a game like this, kick being punt, extra point, or field goal, might be advantageous to the team that ultimately wins. The biggest question in this game, and we've talked already extensively about the quarterback matchup, but the biggest question in this game is, can Alabama block the Aggies front? Through 5 games this year, here's some of the numbers for the Aggies. It's absurd. They're number 1 in the country in sack rate. They sack the quarterback on about 16% of their dropbacks. They're number 1 in tackles for loss per game, which, by the way, the last 2 weeks have been absurd. They're number 2 in sacks per game. That's 4 sacks per game. And they're number 20 against the run. Of course, that's adjusted for sack yardage, and I obviously talked about the tackles for loss. So it's been a really disruptive group altogether, and they are so vastly improved from what they were a year ago. I mean, last year they had just 19 sacks. This year they have 20, and we're not even halfway there to the end of the year. So this group collectively, 2021, we all talked about the recruiting class that they were bringing in 2022, in December of 22 signing class. They are now coming into their own. And Shamar Turner, at the end of the line of scrimmage, might be as good as anybody playing defensive end in college football right now. I mean, he has been outrageously disruptive, so you got to account for him. Alabama has given up a bunch of sacks, but not all those sacks have been on the offensive line. I've talked about that. Of the 20 they've given up to this point, I'd say half are probably on the offensive line. I don't have that for a specific stat. I'm not going to go through every single sack. I've watched them. I'd say probably about half are on the O-line. Half are probably on the quarterback and maybe in a little bit of indecisiveness from time to time, but they're going to have to play their best game. And finally, will Alabama be able to actively run the football? Because the best way to kind of eliminate sacks is staying out of obvious passing situations. I know that doesn't take a scientist to figure out that methodology, right? But if they're consistent running the football on first and second down, and they can live in third and threes, then you might find yourself in a situation where you can run it on third down and avoid the obvious situation where Shamar Turner and company can pin their ears back and come after the quarterback. I think it's going to be a really competitive football game. I anticipate it being pretty low scoring as well. I think both defenses are excellent. And I expect both coaching staffs for both offensive teams, both Bobby Petrino in College Station and Tommy Rees in Alabama, I expect them to really emphasize the point that if you give the other team the short field in this one, we are going to lose. That's kind of what I think will be said. Both defenses are excellent. Both defenses do a great job of attacking the opposing quarterback. I think Bama has an advantage in the secondary, but I think A&M has an advantage at the wide receiver position as of right now. I think it's going to be a close one. I think a walk-off field goal wins it, depending on which side you're on. I think it's a coin toss game. I'll take the favorite. I'll take Bama. I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup, though. Slight favorite, by the way, as that line moves a little bit more. Bama was a 2.5-point favorite down to a 1.5-point favorite. So, gosh, I mean, it's an impossible game to predict. I'm going to be completely honest with that.